I'm Father John-Michael Lavelle. On this episode of the Catholic Echo podcast from the Diocese of Youngstown, brought to you by the annual Diocesan Appeal and Cumulus Radio Youngstown, we're talking about the 2025 Jubilee of Hope with Bishop David Bonnar and Msgr James Kolp. Find more about this episode's topic, including articles from the Catholic Echo, at www.catholicecho.org/podcast. And now the host of the Catholic Echo podcast, Dennis Viviano.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Echo podcast. Today we are looking forward to the year ahead as the Church celebrates the Jubilee anniversary. The city of Rome will be the destination for millions of people from across the globe, including my first guest, Bishop David Bonnar. Thank you so much for your time.
It's great to be here, Dennis.
I guess the first question is for our listeners what the main spiritual significance of the 2025 Jubilee for the Church and the faithful.
Well, every 25 years, the Church celebrates a Jubilee year. It's an opportunity for us in our spiritual lives to pause, to kind of catch our breaths, and to behold what is so familiar from time to time, our spiritual life, and to go on pilgrimage and to embrace a moment of tremendous grace. Holy years always have the opportunity to travel to Rome, to visit the four basilicas, to walk through the Holy Door, which is closed for 24 years, but in the year of the Jubilee, it's always opened. And there's tremendous graces that come, even just that whole mindset of crossing a threshold. It really speaks of a new moment in one's spiritual life, a new realm, entering just all kinds of new possibilities. And even for those who are unable to make that pilgrimage, there still will be many opportunities to enter into this time of grace.
Can you talk a little bit about the theme or the message that leads up to the Jubilee?
The theme is 3 words, Pilgrims of Hope. That's what our Holy Father wants us to focus on during this time. And we shouldn't be surprised at this theme because he has, as our shepherd, invited us to recognize that we walk together. Even that word accompaniment, we walk together, and in that spirit of accompaniment, we support one another. But in this walk, we're on pilgrimage. Our ultimate destination is heaven, where we see God face to face and live with him forever. And so we're just here on a visit in this world. And as we live our lives, as we practice our faith, we are pilgrims of hope. And the hope that we bring is the joy of the gospel and a relationship with Jesus Christ.
How will this Jubilee be celebrated globally? What does it look like in different cultural contexts?
Well, I would invite anyone who has a computer to go and Google the Jubilee year, and you'll find there are so many ways to enter into the Jubilee. The Vatican has been very strategic and very inclusive and encompassing in trying to acknowledge all the different aspects of human life, veterans, sick people. So there will be certain times when there will be designated celebrations around those themes, around those people and their circumstances in life. That's what's going to be happening globally. Locally, each diocese will have their own way of nuancing that, and we soon will be announcing what that's going to look like in our diocese, but it will involve a sense of pilgrimage. It will involve Eucharist. Like all dioceses, it will all begin on the Feast of the Holy Family, when we will have Mass at 4 p.m. in the cathedral, and there's a certain ritual that we will follow. We'll hear a little bit from the papal bull announcing this Jubilee year. There'll be a special focus on the crucifix, and we will have representatives from all the different parishes gathered there along with our clergy, just as we usher in this new year and walk together as pilgrims of hope.
And speaking of pilgrimages, you were going to head out to Rome, you said in October possibly?
Yes, we have a diocesan pilgrimage planned in mid-October, and information on that will be forthcoming. But we will be visiting the Eternal City along with some other Italian cities, and we will be on pilgrimage, entering into this moment of grace, and hopefully we will be able to see our Holy Father.
What would you like folks that may take part in that to take away from the experience?
Well, I think the message that the Holy Father is putting before us is one that can be a prayer and a goal, and that is the whole idea of being pilgrims of hope. We live in a world that can be very dark and dreary, very hopeless, at times even heartless. So it's important that we're people of hope. I think it was St. Augustine who said, "We are an Easter people, and Alleluia is our song." That song is a song of hope. And so wherever we go, whatever we do, to be able to exude that hope, to live that hope, practice that hope, I think that's, for me, the real outcome.
Any other spiritual practices or devotions you recommend for us that are at home, us that are going to our respective churches to undertake during the Jubilee year?
Well, I think it's an opportunity for each disciple, each individual to look within at their spiritual life. Anytime there's a change or a refocus, there's always the opportunity for self-examination. And with that, to look at how one prays and how one can pray better, but also how one can belong more fully to the body of Christ and to one's respective parish family. The church relies upon its members. And, as we open the door to the Jubilee year, I pray that people will open their hearts to new possibilities of perhaps serving as volunteers or ministers, all for the good of the church.
Thank you so much, Bishop Bonnar. Coming up next, we'll speak with Diocesan Communications Director and the Vicar for Missionary Discipleship, Father John-Michael Lavelle. Much more when the Catholic Echo podcast returns.
Hello, I'm Bishop Dave Bonnar of the Diocese of Youngstown. Christmas is a blessed time to remember the miraculous gift of God's love in Jesus, the newborn King. We recall the angel's message announced over 2,000 years ago. Today, in the city of David is born to you a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. As we celebrate his birth, may his gifts of love and peace be born again in our hearts and homes this Christmas season.
Did you know that the Catholic Echo magazine is delivered 10 times per year to 52,000 Catholic households in northeastern Ohio? That's more than 150,000 people. And the Catholic Echo website, catholicecho.org, has been averaging 30,000 views per month since it launched in February 2023. Advertise your business, special event, or service with the Catholic Echo in print or online. Email catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org. Advertising discounts are available for Catholic institutions as well as for businesses that commit to 5 or 10 issues in a year. Email catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org or visit the advertising tab at catholicecho.org for more information.
Hello and welcome to the Catholic Echo podcast. We have a very special episode for you this week. We are talking about the 2025 Jubilee in the Catholic Church. The last one was in 2000, and the theme this year is Pilgrims of Hope. Here to talk about the 2025 Jubilee is the Vicar of Missionary Discipleship and our Director of Communications, Pastor of St. Michael Parish in Canfield, Father John-Michael Lavelle. Thanks as always for joining us.
It's wonderful to be here.
Now, you were ordained in May of 2000, the year of the last Jubilee. What are some fond memories that you had from that time in the Diocese of Youngstown?
Well, it was a very exciting time, and I think many people think the great Jubilee of 2000 was just that, this great experience. So I think they're even a little shocked that there's a 2025, and they might even be more shocked if they don't recall that there was a 1975. So before I talk a little bit about 2000, the Jubilees have been around since 1300, and we do them every 25 years now. Mm-hmm. Certainly not to the degree that we did the great Jubilee of 2000, because it ushered in the third millennium of Christianity. I had the good fortune, as you said, to be ordained in May of 2000, which meant I was a transitional deacon for the year leading up to the Jubilee. And so the Jubilee, I remember, opened, as it did everywhere, on Christmas Eve of 1999. I was the deacon of the Mass that Bishop Tobin had here at the cathedral. I've seen a recent photograph of the bishop actually opening the holy door, and I point out to my family and friends that the hand and the wrist that's holding the book of the Gospels was mine. That's all that is in the photo. But it was just an exciting time. The whole church was on fire. You know, there was 3 years of preparation. Our Holy Father at the time, John Paul II, called for 3 years of preparation, and each of those years was focusing on one of the persons of our God. So we had a year devoted to learning and discussing more about Jesus for us, and then the Holy Spirit, and then finally the Father, as we then moved into that great year of 2000.
There's a general calendar of events right now that is put out by the Vatican for the Jubilee. I guess, can you talk about some of the events there and, here in the diocese as well? How will it be celebrated?
Since it is the theme Pilgrims of Hope, our Holy Father has called for a great sense of pilgrims and recognizing different groups of people coming together. So there is a rather advantageous calendar that they have out there that is almost weekly. Our diocese is going to look at that and have some plans to do 6 to 8 of these larger groupings, visiting different parts of the diocese, going to each county at least once. We'll have one certainly focusing on the Jubilee of the Poor, to journey with those who are in need. A Jubilee with our armed forces and police and security personnel. A Jubilee with all of our religious. Now, the diocese is breaking it down. One is for seminarians, one is for religious, one is for priests. We're going to put that all together. One for communications, which, is certainly close to my heart and yours and has been a priority of Bishop Bonnar's, to be able to be a Jubilee of going forth and getting that message out. So while there are no less than 30 or 40 that the Vatican will be doing, we'll have about 6 to 8 major ones that we'll do over this next year.
Now, there's also plans in the work to make a pilgrimage to Rome?
That is very much in the works. That would often have been part of the early role of pilgrimages, that people were invited to literally make a pilgrimage to Rome or to the Holy City, to go to the Basilica, to offer prayers. And so we are planning something for the fall of 2025, different representatives and members of our diocesan community to go and spend probably 10 to 11 days in Italy, but the final 4 days in the Eternal City.
In doing research for this episode, to find out that more than 35 million people from across the globe are expected to travel to Rome. What do you take from that?
I take from it a great love of the church, a great desire to connect with our customs and our traditions. I think that it's far more than 35 million people all at once deciding, let's vacation in Italy this year, but to really be part of all of the different celebrations. You won't see much different when you're there, but maybe a renewed spirit and a renewed sense. And there will be things that are unique to the Jubilee year. The Holy Door that is sealed up will be opened by our Holy Father, or was just opened up by our Holy Father on Christmas Eve, and will remain open until Epiphany of 2026.
I guess those of us who are not participating in the Jubilee, going on that trip to Rome, how can we participate in it back home here?
I think a great spirit of prayer. And we, as a diocesan community, will be promoting different activities, the opportunity for people maybe to visit one particular church in a county when we go and have those different jubilees. There will be other information that we give out over the next few weeks to just invite that unity of prayer and that spirit of being pilgrims who provide hope for and with each other. One of the things we don't want to lose sight is that this Jubilee does come on the tail end of our nation having just had a 3-year Eucharistic revival. And so we hope that in addition to all of these other ways in which we're going to honor different segments of our population, that we continue, all of us, to unite around and revel in the gift of the Eucharist.
Thank you so much, Father Lavelle. The 2025 Jubilee year began on Christmas Eve and concludes on January 6, 2026. Make sure to keep it here on the Catholic Echo podcast. Next, we will hear from Msgr James Kolp on the history of Jubilee events. Much more to come when we return. Did you know that the Catholic Echo magazine is delivered 10 times per year to 52,000 Catholic households in Northeast Ohio? That is more than 150,000 people. And the Catholic Echo website, catholicecho.org, has been averaging 30,000 views per month since it launched in February 2023. Advertise your business, special event, or service with the Catholic Echo in print or online. Email catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org. Advertising discounts are available for Catholic institutions, as well as for businesses that commit to 5 or 10 issues in a year. Email catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org, or visit the advertising tab at catholicecho.org for more information.
When storms hit, we are there to rebuild. As our neighbors age, we lighten their burdens. As our veterans adjust, we ease their transitions. In every part of the country, we are there. We are Catholic Charities. We serve millions each year regardless of their faith. We put food back on tables, unlock doors, and walk together on the road back. Help Catholic Charities serve your neighbors in need. Join us at wearethere.us.
Hello and welcome back to the Catholic Echo podcast. I'm your host, Colin Vogt, and today I'm joined by Msgr James Kolp. Msgr, thank you for being with us today.
Well, you're very welcome.
As we know, Pope Francis has declared 2025 a Jubilee year for the Church. For those who don't know, what exactly is a Jubilee year?
Well, ordinarily a Jubilee year is, I believe, 25 years of a event. You know, that's usually a celebration of 25 years of something.
And what does a Jubilee year mean for the Church as a whole and for the Diocese of Youngstown in particular?
Yes, well, it's just a good time to celebrate and to look back in history to what is being celebrated. There are articles in the magazines and in the papers about Jubilees, and the booklets or magazines sometimes written about it. Something people can save and celebrate.
What other Jubilee years have you been a part of globally or for here at the Diocese of Youngstown, and what can people expect from the upcoming year?
When the diocese was 25 years old, I think there was a celebration, sometimes special masses by the bishop in different parts of the diocese, and a time to look back and to look forward.
Speaking of Jubilees, 2025 will be your 75th anniversary as a priest here in the Diocese of Youngstown. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What are you looking forward to about what a monumental anniversary that is? Is there anything that you're really excited about to celebrate that milestone? And what are you thinking as we're approaching that 75th anniversary for you?
Yes, well, it's a time to thank God in so many ways for all of his blessings. And it turns out that some years ago, my brother's nephew, his name is Neil Buchan, and he became a priest in the Diocese of Cleveland. And so I was privileged to vest him when he became a priest. Turns out that he has called me, and he has set aside something for my anniversary. It'll be about June the 14th, around that of next year would be my birthday, my God willing, my 100th birthday.
Oh my gosh, wow.
He's planning a Mass at St. Mary's in Massillon. So Bishop Neil Buchan, he is now a bishop in the military. He has charge of the military chaplains in the Western United States. So he is going to be here for that. So Bishop Bonnar is going to be the celebrant of the Mass, and Bishop Neil Buchan is going to give the homily. So that is
wow,
something to look forward to.
That's amazing. And someone that you were there to bring into the priesthood, now able to come back and honor you for these many years of your life that you've given to the church. And that's really quite a beautiful thing.
So much to thank God for.
Well, that's a perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you next. So over the years that you've been a priest here in the Diocese of Youngstown, what are some of the biggest changes that you've witnessed here in your time as a priest?
Well, I suppose the biggest changes have happened within the past several years. When I was first ordained back in 1950, I was stationed at the cathedral in Youngstown, and I think there were 4 of us, the pastor and 3 associates. So now at the cathedral, there's just one person who is assigned to the cathedral. So the changes have happened in the last several years because we have less priests. And now instead of having a priest to be pastor of one parish, he might be pastor of 2 or even 3 parishes. Isn't that something? So we need vocations very much. And I'm sure that one of the things we'll be doing during this Jubilee will be praying for vocations, asking the Lord to send us vocations.
Now, do you think that in your experience, have there been periods of low vocations where there's a need for priests and then that need is met? Is it something that kind of goes up and down? What can you tell us about that?
Well, I have to say that we really didn't notice any wide openings in vocations until the recent several years, just we'll say the last 12 years. And before that, we seemed to be blessed with many priests, and many parishes had associates, not only one priest, but at least two. Looking back over the 75 years, I would say that we were blessed right through those 75 years by a group of priests, so that we're not really that short.
You've seen so much come and go throughout the diocese, and as you mentioned, there's been periods of change and periods of struggle, and yet the church has been through so much and still strong and still full of the faithful. What can you say to, having been through all this, what gives you hope moving forward? What encourages you for the next 75 years, shall we say, or just the future of the church here in the Diocese of Youngstown?
Well, I suppose the encouragement would be that looking around us, it seems that the faith of people does not seem to be as strong in many cases. I mean, there has been a study of people who may not believe in the Eucharist, for example. It might be as many as maybe 13% of the Catholics who have believing in the truth of the Eucharist and so on. Still, the faith is still very strong. There is a lot of hope for the future, but we do not have as many, we've had a lot of schools closed, and this is not good, of course. But when I was ordained, and all through those years, we had an ample number of sisters, wonderful groups of sisters who taught all over our diocese, as in 3 parts of the world. Now there are not that many. So we are going to be praying for vocations. So I think we look around, it just seems that right now we're looking at a country that doesn't seem to be devoted as much to Almighty God as we have over the past years. So that's something we have to work toward and pray for.
What have you learned about the community of the Diocese of Youngstown throughout your career that is unique to us? And what can we kind of take strength from in our past, in our history as a diocese to move forward?
Yes, I suppose the main thing that has happened in our diocese is that one of our bishops, Bishop James Malone, became the president of the United States Conference of Bishops. So he's been the president of you might say, of all the bishops in the United States.
Wow.
From Youngstown. And I had the privilege, when I was ordained back in 1950, he was on the staff at St. Columba Cathedral, as I was, and had a chance to spend a lot of time with him and follow him in some of his undertakings. And I went to Catholic University in Washington for a master's degree in theology and taught at Cardinal Mooney High School. And I was spiritual director there and also taught at Ursuline to some extent, and even a very part of the time at Welsh College, which of course is now Welsh University in North Canton, Ohio. Our diocese has just been outstanding in so many ways.
What other sorts of aspects have we been at the forefront of faith in the U.S., or are there any other things that you think we could kind of take encouragement from in our past?
Yes, I think that our school system, I think we've had a marvelous collection of Catholic schools, elementary schools and high schools. And then, of course, we had Welsh University now. When they were beginning Welsh, why I was at the cathedral and sometimes had a chance to speak with the ones some of the brothers who were planning the college, which was going to be called simply a college. So I said, call it Canton College. And so they decided to call the building a North Canton College. Mm-hmm. But then along came a school in Canton called Canton Actual Business College. And they objected to that. They said, we already have a Canton College. And then that's when they changed to Walsh after one of our great bishops, Michael Walsh.
The last thing I just wanted to ask you, Monsignor, and looking back on just a remarkable career as a priest, what would you say kind of encapsulates your career, or what has brought you the most joy over the years? It just means the most to you.
Yes, well, was so blessed by a marvelous family. My parents, my brother and sisters were such a joy and an example to me. And my family has been very, very close to me and been in many parishes throughout the diocese and met just wonderful people. Wherever I was sent, I began in Youngstown at the cathedral and at Cardamone High School, and then went to the first church in our diocese at Dungannon, St. Philip Neri, and be there at that parish, and was very much interested in one of the very early priests from that area, Father Lindesmith. So I had the privilege of writing a story about him. The amazing Father Lindesmith was a priest in during the Indian Wars. For example, he was out in Montana area, worked among the Native Americans, also was very influential in other parts of the country where he helped. So as I say, there's just so much that we have in our diocese that to look back on. Right now, I had written a booklet called The President's Priest. Mm-hmm. And the President's Priest, and it's about a priest named Father Edward Votman. And Father Votman was one time stationed at Dungannon, and then he was stationed in Canal Fulton. But in his years of the priesthood and his retirement, he became very, very close to President William McKinley. And then also, years after that, was very close to President Teddy Roosevelt. Also, another priest that was close to was Father Robert Brengardner, who had been a chaplain in our diocese. He had been an associate for many years here, and he went into the service. When President Kennedy was assassinated, he was a chaplain down in Washington. So he was the one met the family after President Kennedy was assassinated, spent several hours with them after the death of President Kennedy. I've written a book about him, too. It's called Chaplain and a Half. So much in our diocese that we can be really thankful for. And so we hope and pray that with all that Bishop Bonnar is doing, that he is trying to get cooperation from just all over the diocese, trying to work together to do what we can with the number of priests, the number of religious that we have. Also, I've been privileged to be quite active in the Knights of Columbus in the diocese. There's just a lot to look back upon and to pray that the future will have marvelous things ahead with God's help and grace.
Well, thank you so much, Monsignor Kolp. And it's a bit early, but let me just say congratulations on your 75th anniversary as a priest in the Diocese of Youngstown. I thank you, and I'm sure that everyone listening thanks you very much for all that you've done for us. And we are all going to be praying for you and celebrating your 75th Jubilee very soon.
Well, thank you very much, and I wish all the best to you and all of the writing that you do, and keep up the good work. And I'll certainly be praying for you and for the folks of our diocese, and I ask people to pray for me. Appreciate that very much also.
Thank you, Monsignor. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for calling.
If you'd like to hear more, you can always read more about it at thecatholicecho.org.
The Catholic Echo podcast is a production of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. Your host has been Dennis Biviano. Have a blessed day, and may God be with you.